Hi, everybody. What time is it? Of course, I put all my drinks in front of the clock, so I don't know what time it is. Okay. 11 p.m. Hey, blue sky. Man, Twitter, or what was formerly known as Twitter, just looks like garbo when I look at it. It's like a mess of ads, right? I'm like, why am I still using this thing? Yeah, I should just don't. Just don't. Yay! I've been making Slightydam since high school, so we have something in common. Whoa, now it's getting full in here. It's like a class size. I guess I could officially begin. I think that originally this panel was pitched as going to have multiple speakers, but y'all are just stuck with me. So it's like a TF webcomics panel. I do read webcomics that have TF in them, but obviously I'm only an expert on the one that I make. So I'm usually pretty talkative, so I don't think I'm going to have any trouble filling an hour, but I encourage questions. Oh, hey, I'm the TV tropes example for TF tropes. Hell yeah. Wait, what is it? What art did they use? Whenever I find out that stuff, it's like it always feels like someone went out of their way to find the most ancient art imaginable that I drew. But then it's my fault because I never draw normal art of my characters. And by normal, I mean like they're just standing there not doing anything. They're usually with somebody or doing something or making a silly face. And then when I try to find my own key art for, let's say, panels, I don't have any. They're all silly things. Thank you. And yes, that is my transformation t-shirt. I call that one Positive Transformation. And just so you all know, that is far and away my most popular design. It turns out people really like to transform. Oh, yeah, there we go. There's a Marshmallow Dream. I will be at Furpocalypse this weekend, by the way, but I'm not here to talk about shilling my merchandise. I'm here to talk about my TF webcomic, but also we could also talk about other stuff later. But anyway, my name is Chu. Oh yeah, on involuntary shapeshifting. You know, I actually think I cropped that image to put in here. And my webcomic is called Slightly Damned. It has been going since 2004, which I think makes it one of the oldest running, still active webcomics. I mean, there's still Kevin and Kel and Sabrina Online, of course. But it's a survivor now because it just celebrated its 20th anniversary this year, and I have updated it almost every week since I started. I didn't make this comic. I made this comic when I was 16 years old. I started when I was 16 years old, and I transformed into somebody who is now 20 years older. And as someone has said earlier in the chat, that the art style has changed a lot since the beginning, but that is mostly because I knew what I wanted to do, but I just didn't have the skill or experience to do it. And it feels like with every year, I get a little closer to what I wanted to do in the first place, which was make anime. I'm not an animator. I'm a comic artist, so I guess technically it's manga, but you know, it's inspired by anime. It's got the coloring style and everything. I didn't make the comic specifically to be about transformation, but I think that's just because I just assumed that everyone liked transformation anyway, because you see it everywhere, right? There's so much werewolf stuff. I grew up loving Animorphs, grew up getting PTSD from Animorphs because it's so grim at times, but it was memorable. But it was good. It's a good kind of trauma. And I guess I was like the most influenced, like I said, by anime. And if I think about what was the anime that inspired me the most when it comes to transformation in my comic, it would be Rama One Half, which is just getting its brand new what do you call it? Like a new anime. It's a new adaptation, a new anime based on the old adaptation. And if it's not immediately clear, like what's going on here, the redheaded girl at the top and the black-haired boy at on that is another on the left, bottom left. They are the same person. Rama, when splashed with cold water, turns into a girl and turns back into a boy when splashed with hot water. And there are several characters in the cast that have different kinds of curses. Most to all of them are animal curses. So Rama, the main character, has a gender changing curse, but for the other characters, one character turns into a pig. Rama's dad turns into a panda. There's a character who I can't remember if it's a duck or a goose. It looks like a duck from the drawings, but I feel like they called it a goose. Um, and yeah, and Fruits Basket, which again, not very obvious from this key art, but several characters in Fruits Basket are human until they are hugged by somebody of the opposite gender. A lot of gender stuff in Japan, turns out. Interesting subversions and also weird conforming to, while also conforming the gender roles. It's odd. It's interesting. But when when that orange-haired boy gets hugged by a girl, he turns into the cat, and when that gray-haired boy is hugged by a girl, he turns into that mouse. And when that older man with black hair gets hugged, he turns into a dog. And also Kazukin Cha-Cha, which is not as well known in the States because it's never gotten an official American release. I learned that it had an English dub that was only aired in the Philippines, but never released on home media. But Akazukin Cha-Cha which the title means Red Riding Hood Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha is her name. And if you're familiar with me and my work at all, you've probably seen me draw my characters with those big, round, shining eyes. That is because that was directly influenced by Akazukin Cha-Cha. And there's that boy in the bottom left of that image with the green shirt and the blue hair. His name is Riya, and he is a werewolf in the sense that he can turn into a little fluffy white wolf whenever he wants and turn back. It's not a curse, it's an ability. That is just what he does, and he is incredibly strong. And incredibly dumb, but he introduces himself as the strong and kind werewolf Riya. And like as I watching these shows, in case you like, I wanted to tell you what they were about, why they had transformation in them. I thought it was just fun. I always liked animals. I wanted to be a cat with my cat. That sort of thing. And when I watched this anime when I was a teenager, like elementary school, through high school is when I was into these series at the most. When I wanted to make something like that, and I just sort of went like whole hog into making a comic, and I didn't have everything planned out. I had some things planned out, but I had basically enough to just start going because I was so eager to start writing, to start drawing, that I just went for it. And then, so what ended up happening is that I had all these pieces for the story that I wanted to tell, but I wasn't quite older and experienced enough to know how to add the depth. And when I got more experience. When I got older, I learned more. I went through college. I learned more about the world around me. I learned more about myself. I learned more about other people. Then I decided, like, okay, I have all these characters who go through transformations, but why? What's the point? Why do I want them to be transforming? And this was like long before, like when I was thinking about these things, it was long before like I started to self-identify as a furry. I had a whole identity crisis. We talked about that another time. I mean, if you were in early 2000s internet, like social suicide, right? If you're going to tell people that you're a furry, it was a different time. I'm really glad that things are a lot better in a lot of ways now than they used to be. furries used to be so taboo. And so I actually literally advertised my comic by saying it wasn't a furry comic because I had, all the stigma in my mind. I had to like internalize that. And then I got over it. I grew up and I realized that those things don't limit me. So when I made my characters, I started thinking like, okay, they have these transformations. What do they mean? So this comic has three main characters, and they're the top three characters here. There's Buwaro the demon, Rhea the Jakai, which is a species that is for the comic, and Kieri, who is an angel. So we have Buwaro. He is a teenage demon he's the first character in the comic to be shown to have a transformation. He's normally a very happy-go-lucky, cheerful person who doesn't. In the beginning of the comic, he doesn't really know what the reputation of demons are among other people. He doesn't even know what an angel is. He's just very friendly. He wants to be friends with everybody, and he's hard to hate because he's so friendly and so nice. But he does have a secret where if you remove the star pendant that he wears around his neck, he will transform into a berserk demon. So demons in the world of Slightly Damned, when they are close to death, they may go berserk as a last resort and indiscriminately attack everything around them. If there is nothing to attack, they may start hurting themselves. A berserk demon will eventually expend all their energy and die. Under normal circumstances, going berserk is irreversible. So this is obviously a transformation that is not it looks cool, especially when you're 16 years old or 17 years old or whatever. It's rad as hell. Like I think I realized later that I didn't really understand what happened. I think what happened is that I found old drawings of myself of Ninja Turtles, and I think what happened is that I saw a commercial for a later season of Ninja Turtles that I did not see, and I still haven't seen, where the mutation of the Ninja Turtles goes like haywire, and they get like more badass forms. And I think that's just where I took it from. But again, like I wanted to add like more. I need more of a reason to make a compelling story, right? It isn't just to look cool. So why does Buwaro have this aspect of himself? Even though Buwaro is normally friendly, fluffy, and harmless, demons have a reputation in the world of the world of Slightly Damned as being stupid and violent harbingers of chaos. Buwaro uses his star, which is basically an assistive device, in order to stay sane. I wanted Buwaro to represent two very opposite ends of the demon spectrum. There's the violent monsters that everyone else sees them as, at least at first, but they also have potential to be more than their reputation. So they have a reputation in the world as people like a race who is just violent, and they have no depth. Basically, they can be really reckless. They're very chaotic. They're very, very strong, and they seem really selfish. But when people get the chance to know some of them, you realize that they are people just like anyone else. And I feel that like without this transformation, Buwaro would simply be, quote, one of the good ones. That attitude allows someone to bestow worth on a single person while feeling justified in damning the rest of someone's race. It's true that demons are violent and can go berserk, but it is true that demons have been at war with angels in the story of the comic for over 1,000 years. But like Buwaro carries that dark past of demons with him, whether he likes it or not. It's not by his choice that he transforms. Just like we are born into like history that we didn't necessarily create ourselves, but we are still responsible, I think, to avoiding the mistakes of the past, to learn from other people, to avoid prejudices. Yes, Buwaro is the way he is because of as a result of the war. So I wanted Buwaro, even though he was supposed to be like this, basically like the good one, right? But I wanted him to have this dark edge to him, and that's where the transformation and the berserk demons like turned into. There's always this element of danger that's with him, right? If he and which is part of the story, is that if he loses that star that he carries around his neck, he will turn into like what everyone believes demons really are, or like what people that's it, right? But he's so much more than that. And then the other character, one who arguably transforms the most, and the one where I really was like, wow, I really don't draw any normal art of my characters unless I have to for a Kickstarter, is Kieri. Kieri is an angel. She is a warrior angel in this setting where angels and demons have been at war for over 1,000 years. And she was brought up in a very strict society and raised to be a warrior where her only job was to kill as many demons as possible. That is the only thing anyone ever expected of her. And she got depressed. She got really depressed. And she's very shy, but she is very strong. And her thing is that she, let's see, she there it is. I cropped that same image. She transforms into a bunny seemingly at random. It could be the trigger. The most common triggers earlier in the comic were sneezing, but really it was more of if she was surprised or startled or weak, or she sneezed something that was very sudden, like she would just turn into a bunny. And this started as a joke on my part because humans are so hard to draw. I was so confident in my ability to draw animals and furries, but humans were impossible. But I forced myself to learn, and now I really like it. But it was hard. And so sometimes in my doodles, I would just draw this really simple looking bunny as a joke. And then it just became a thing that I wanted to include in the comic. So why does she turn into a bunny? Well, in the story, she gets cursed by let's say a demigod who doesn't like angels, and we find out that the demigod didn't do the curse exactly right, because angels are so much more magical than other mortals in the world that it didn't quite go all the way. So she has trouble controlling her curse. She can control it more so than normal, but she doesn't have full control over it, at least not in the beginning of the comic. But why a bunny? Bunnies are cute. I like bunnies. You're the bunny, represent. But also, bunnies are small, vulnerable prey animals. Kieri's curse represents her fear of being useless and left behind. She has very little confidence in herself and a low sense of self-worth as a result of her abusive upbringing. So a bunny ended up being this great way to represent, like, when she's in her normal body, her original body anyway, she's shy, but she's very strong. She's very capable. She wields a heavy sword. She has wings. She can fly. She can use magic. She is the strongest of the three main characters in terms of battle, but she's very, very like introverted, and she's socially anxious. So the bunny ends up being this physical representation of that, and her fear of being vulnerable, because in her childhood being vulnerable left her, well, she was punished. She was punished for being vulnerable. But over the course of the comic, Kieri learns to control her curse through the love, patience, and kindness of her friends. When she allows herself to be who she is and just enjoy being a bunny for a little while, she has better control over it. But at this point in the story, she probably doesn't know that. She, like, I try to be very like careful about what I know versus what the characters know. And right now the characters are starting to question, like, why can Kieri control her curse better than she could earlier in the comic? Like, why is it that she can just do it? And she wants to, in this panel, this collection of panels on the left, we see that she's transforming into a bunny in front of her brother. And she's offering to teach him how to control his curse better, because he, separate from her, he also has his own curse. And in the later parts of the story, we see that Kieri will just turn into a bunny because it's more comfortable for her. And as a result of doing that, it lets her decide when she wants to be a bunny and when she doesn't want to be a bunny. She turns her curse. Let's see. I think I reordered the panels around here. Yeah. So we have, Kieri and Snowy. Snowy being her alter ego. That's what her nickname is. What Buaro, her boyfriend, nicknames her Snowy. So I just sort of refer to them as Kieri and Snowy because this is easier that way sometimes. Yeah, and her brother is a part-time pupper now. Let's see. There's a sequence that I'm pretty proud of from 2020 where Kieri, the difference between Kieri and her brother really comes to a head here. And she turns her curse into a strength. But her brother struggles with his curse and it becomes a liability. So this is just a really good visual of that where he tries to hit her with Swift. Well, it's not Swift, but don't worry, I have made memes about how Swift missed where it's not supposed to miss, like in Pokemon. But anyway, she turns into a bunny and is able to fit through all the attack and give her brother a well-deserved kick. Don't worry, he deserved it. He deserved to be kicked. Yeah, she used minimize. And which startled her brother, and he starts falling to the ground, and we can see here that he is cursed to be a wolf. And he's got his own story arc that he has to work through that has to do with his curse. But yeah, at this point, Kieri has weaponized her ability to become a smaller target and to evade attacks. When earlier in the comic, actually the last time that she fought an angel, her curse was a liability. Her curse held her back and actually got in her way. But now in this page, she has learned how to use it effectively. Definitely waiting for the day when he comes to term with being a wolf. Oh yes. I mean, I always take my time, but it's coming someday. I don't like negative permanent transformation, so everyone's gotta enjoy it. I think I could draw a pretty cute Kazai now, but he is definitely way cuter and way funnier to draw as a wolf. A core part. Oh, this is another part I wanted to talk about with the comic is that Kieri has also undergone the biggest change in her character design as a result of the going through one of the longer arcs in the city. So here we see the city TFing from being vibrant and full of life to being a field of ash and tears. But maybe that's not the TF you all came here for, but it was an important theme to this part of the story, and Kieri's design got a huge upgrade. And I also wanted to include this panel because of the very particular wording that I had chosen for Kieri when we had her backstory this year. I wanted angels in the world of Slightly Damned all start out as genderless. So technically, any angel on the binary that you see in Slightly Damned is trans by default because they are, at the very technical use of the word, they go from one gender to another gender. And trans themes are very personally important to me because I am non-binary. I don't mind saying that I was assigned female at birth. I went by my legal name for a long time, and some people may not be confused about that, but I am non-binary, they, them. And I wanted to use the wording, I decided I was a girl, deliberately choosing to word it that way. Just wanted to point out here the big neon sign. And yeah, so Kieri has gone through transformation not just because of her bunny abilities, but because of her character design has changed, but also it feeds into the idea of these characters changing over the course of the story. No gender, only swag. Oh man, that's good. The romance between Buaro and Kieri is a big part of the comic because, and arguably the reason I started the comic. So whenever anybody tells me that the like it's distracting from the story, they don't know what my story is about. I did it for them. I did it to make everyone look at my ship. But it does relate. It's not important. The reason that the reason that I include this is not just to make you stare at my mushy art, but also um to have a little bit here about transformation and when I won't do it and my limits for that. There's a part early on in the comic where Buaro is told an universe version of the Beauty and the Beast story, but Buaro is not happy with the ending because he cannot transform into an angel in order to, appease Kieri if she has trouble with demons. They work it out. But like at this point of the story, she was feeling conflicted because he's a demon and her upbringing and yada yada yada. And Buaro wanted to date her, but he's a demon. No one thinks it can work out. And he hears the Beauty and the Beast story, and we all know tale as old as time, blah blah blah. And then the person turns back from a beast into a socially acceptable husband, and Boar doesn't like that. And I remember doing this because I wanted to make it crystal clear to people that my MO is to make the human-like character kiss the furry-like character, and if the furry character transforms into a human at the end, it's just not gonna happen. No bueno. That's just not what I want. It's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm making this comic for. That is not ever going to be the solution. So the proper ending is to pull a Shrek and make Kieri into a demon. See, I'm glad you said that because I refuse. I'm a furry. I have furry friends. I go to furry cons. All my friends, basically all my friends at this point are furry. I love furries, but like if somebody tells, like I cannot, I can't accept like Buaro and Kieri being the same species. It just short circuits my brain. That misses a big aspect of why I like these characters, and I can't just have them be both the same. Like if somebody else wants to do that, I'm not going to get in their ways. I think that's fun, but even when asked to species swap characters, I like if one species swaps, the other ones will swap to make sure they do not match. So this is a wallpaper I drew with Kieri. Like the normal ones are on the left. So you have Kieri as an angel thinking about her boyfriend Buaro, who's a demon. And then we have Kieri as a demon thinking about her boyfriend, Buaro as an angel. So they always have to be different. And here's more art, I guess, post-transformation where the characters have had their species changed. Yeah, they can species swap, but they can't both be the same, is the point, right? And then we have Rhea. Rhea, arguably the main character, the first character to show up in the story. But really, in my mind, it's the three of them together are the main characters, Buaro, Rhea, and Kieri. And Rhea is a species called a Jakai. It's not really important what a Jakai is in for the purposes of this talk. Just you can think of it as like it's kind of like Zelda, where there are humans or Hylians depending on the game, and then there's Gorons and Zoras, and they're basically considered mortals alongside the humans. It's kind of that sort of situation. Jakai is just what I have instead of like dwarfs or elves or something. Yeah, Rhea's got a very long tail, which is her namesake. She was on the left. That's how she was drawn for about 20 years. And then more recently, her last name, Snaketail, became much more literal because she is in the process of transforming into a snake. Rhea, unlike Kieri, was not cursed, but she was born or hatched. Jakai are hatched. They have eggs. So she, as a result of her heritage, has a connection to the demigods, one of which that cursed Kieri, the bunny demigod, and she has got a connection with the snake demigod of this world. So part of the story is finding out like why she has what her connection is to the snake demigod and what that means for her in the future. Um, and this has allowed me to explore more themes about transformation and depict things in a way that I wanted. Yes, there is a snake that was in the town that got burned down who is a villain. That is Moonshade, who claims to have killed the original snake god. And Rhea has a connection to both him and the snake god that preceded him. So the future of the story is going to be more about like what is that connection? Why does Rhea have this connection to snakes? Where did it come from? And when will she finally become tall? Rhea worries about how her friends will think of her, but they accept her without question. I was reluctant to transform Rhea into a snake at first because I mostly thought of them as being vulnerable, which was a lot of the same themes as what Carrie Wallery went through. And like I would see people making jokes about, of all things, Superior the Pokemon turning from a lizard with limbs to a snake with tiny arms, and how people seem to think of snakes as being inferior, even if it's just for a joke. Thinking of snakes as inferior because they don't have limbs, like people have limbs. So why would I want to be something that doesn't have limbs? Because that's worse. And that's just, snakes are efficient. They don't need limbs. That's what their beauty is. So even Rhea doesn't see the value in becoming a snake. How would turning into a little limp noodle solve any of my problems? But then until her friend tells her that the snake that she is actually a very, very big one. So then she starts getting more interested in the idea of becoming tall. And I've drawn a lot of art of Snake Rhea, but not a lot in the main comic. I sat on this reveal for 20 years and I can't wait any longer. So I just sort of draw tons and tons and tons of art of Snake Rhea and put her on t-shirts and things because I love her. But without compromising the payoff that I want to happen in the story, which to me has to happen at a natural pace without me just rushing to the end. Because if you rush to the end, like you never get that build up back. I will take my time with the build up so then it gets to pay off. But it's important to me that Rhea's transformation is not seen as a negative thing. Her transformation is expedited when she is happy with herself and takes care of others. So without revealing my entire hand here, things that I wanted to explore with Rhea's transformation was somebody who is undergoing what would more typically be seen as some sort of scary body horror kind of transformation, but put it on its head. So she's actually really into it. She thinks it's cool. She doesn't know how to make it happen, but she kind of wants it to. But there's also an element of mystery to it because she doesn't really know why it's happening. And anticipation. Yeah, there is okay. No confirmation. Well, there is confirmation. Rhea. Well, this is in the story. Well, okay. Read my webcomic. I personally don't mind spoiling people on my webcomic because it's 1,000 pages long. So there's going to be other things that you can enjoy in the story. But Rhea is the daughter of Moonshade, who is the giant snake that we see in the burning city. And Moonshade claims to have killed Moku, which is the demigod snake of the world. And Rhea was told the reason why she was killed is because of her relation to Moku. Oh, thank you very much for linking it. I forgot to convince you all to read it by reminding you that Slightand has won 4 Ursa Major Awards for Best Graphic Story and Best Other Literary Work, and I think has been nominated 2 other times besides that. The third book is Well, it's done. It's in a warehouse and I have some, but the Kickstarter backers are about to get theirs very soon. Man, that would be awesome to have like a custom bear like mount just like holding the awards. But yeah, like yeah, I think I have some slides here, Moonshade actually. Oh yeah, here's this panel of Rhea being hinting at what is triggering Rhea's transformation is that she was nice to her friend Kieri and she gained a few more scales on her arm. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a curse. And even with Kieri and her curse, it was something that was started out as something negative, but then ended up being a transformation that Kieri does for fun and enjoyment and for comfort, because when she's around people who love her and will take care of her when she's vulnerable, she feels much more in control of who she is. Um, and there's let's see. So here's Moonshade, which is I've mentioned him a couple times. This is Rhea's father. Um, and so we got some nice transformation panels here, where he turns into, I guess, like an earlier design for the kind of cobra that Rhea and Moonshade are, which is a cactus cobra, not a real snake, but a snake that exists in the world of Slightly Damned. And the other characters who have these animal transformations in the story are kind of there as foils for the main characters. So the first time we see a transforming giant snake, it's actually quite negative. So it pains me as a lifelong snake fan to say that for a long time the only snake representation was rather villainous, even though he does say that he killed the original. So it wasn't the original who was a villain. He is a villain, but this guy is a villain. And he's a more stereotypically evil snake. So with Rhea, I have this opportunity to show a snake who isn't evil, kind of like Bawaro, who is a demon, but he subverts expectations by being kind and fluffy and nice. We have at first we have a snake who is evil, villainous, and is murderous, selfish, and attacks the city, causes a lot of fire. It's a whole thing. But with Rhea, she's somebody who is into her transformation. She benefits from it when she is kind to others, when she acts like a good guardian, and she's actively interested in it. And she's really cute. Oh yes, and being rewarded with snake gifts. And then earlier we mentioned Kazai, who is Kieri's sister, who is a wolf. Kieri and Kazai were separated for a long time, and as twins are mysteriously wont to do, they had eerily similar experiences, even though they weren't anywhere near each other. So while Kieri was cursed to be like a bunny, he was cursed by a wolf demigod. And here we see that Kieri is learning to stand up for herself, while Kazai is very much in denial of his own curse. And this also feeds into his own character arc about what it means to be a wolf, what it means to be a lone wolf. Here's a hint: it sucks. It sucks being a lone wolf. You don't want to be a lone wolf. Lone wolves do not thrive. Wolves with packs thrive. But it's, it also is a great excuse for me to draw a really silly looking dog. I mean, wolf. Yeah, Buppy. And also, Kazai's curse manifests in a very different way than Kieri's, in which her transformations were very sudden. They were poof transformations, like the ones that I grew up watching in Rama One Half and Akazuki Cha-Cha and Fruits Baskets. She poofed because like I said, I didn't necessarily start this comic to be about transformation, and I felt that like drawing transformation would be a little bit too like negative, too body horror-y, and I would just feel kind of bad for Kieri because I already bully her so much. So they ended up being just like cute little poof transformations. But with Kazai, he is in so much denial over his own situation, his own problems, his own issues, his own curse, that he just like sprouts ears and funny paws and tails, and like they all just come out, and he'll even deny that it's happening while it's happening. But it was still important for me that for my own personal taste, not a judgment on anyone else, I feel like it's a little too scary to go into the body horror aspect of this stuff. So even with Kazai and his crazy transforming body, it's more for humor. I don't try to think about it too hard. I don't want to. I was about to say I don't want to traumatize my characters, but that's a lie. If you read this comic, it's a lie. So don't. I don't know. It's just a line I arbitrarily decided to draw in the sand, I suppose. I'm not owned. I'm not owned as he slowly turns into wolf. I like to cause trauma, but I don't want transformation to be the cause of the trauma. How about that? Right? There's all sorts of other ways we can get there. No one ever forgets Boaro's sister. No one will let me forget Boaro's sister. If you know, you know, right? There are other transforming characters in the comic. These aren't the only ones, but these are the main ones who do a lot of transformation. And yeah, I've been talking for quite some time. So like I said, I think originally this was going to be a panel with other people, but then it ended up just being me. So I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have for me about things I may have missed or more clarification on things I talked about. Read my webcomic. You don't have to read my comic, but it does help. And it also does have a lot of. See, I thought I didn't make this comic to be about transformation, but then I made this panel. I'm like, maybe it is. Maybe I really need to lean into this. Read, comment, and subscribe. Well, you can subscribe to me on Twitch. I do stream on Twitch. Yeah, Carrie did have snowy ears in one panel, but it's not a cute one. It's not one that can I can put in this slide without being both very violent and not for Carrie and very spoilery. But she does have her bunny ears when she is mostly human because of she's in a very stressful situation. Oh yeah, I guess thank you, Spike. Recommendations for similarly TF focused webcomics. I would personally recommend Skin Deep if you are a fan of like cryptids and people in our modern world society. I think it's actually set in the early 2000s, but like people in modern society who have connections to cryptids and other mythological beings, but they are trying to assimilate in society or eke out places for themselves in parallel worlds. That would be Skin Deep. Yeah, urban fantasy. And I also want to shout out my friend who does a webcomic called Yokoka's Quest. Actually, let's see. I'll get this link for Skin Deep first. So yeah, there's Skin Deep is urban fantasy. Yeah, urban fantasy and gargoyles inspired. Both Corey and I are huge fans of Disney's gargoyles. And I also like Yokoka's Quest, which is by my friend, has a lot of cute furry and furry adjacent critters, and the main character is someone with a beast curse who starts out the comic as a cat and then is partially transformed out of that. But my friend has told me that that's not over for Yokoka. That cat curse is still part of her and part of the story. And I've convinced Clef to go with me to their very first FurryCon, which will be Vancouver next March. I have also read a bit of Kirkwood, and that was fun. That was mentioned earlier. Let's see. I guess Kevin and Kel. I was looking at my list of my bookmarks, and Kevin and Kel does have a bit of poof transformation in it. So there are characters who have turned into different animals, and often when they use pheromones to hide their scent from the other anthropomorphic animals in their world, they will have an illusion that makes them look like an animal other than what they really are. How to Be a Werewolf is part of Hiveworks, which Slightly Damned is also a part of Hiveworks, so that's also a really good one. If we're going to just talk about what favorite webcomics in general, then I must shout out Preeny Must Repeat Sixth Grade. I cannot recommend that comic enough. You may have seen it recently on Twitter because one of their posts recently was bumping with over almost 2,000 likes, which was a full page of rave wolves. Preeny Has to Repeat Sixth Grade is a webcomic about a little girl with powers in a world of sparkle dogs. Every character, other than a small handful, we're talking about 2 or 3 characters. Every other character in Preeny Has to Repeat Sixth Grade is adopted from a young artist on DeviantArt and included in this world of sparkle dogs with a lot of attention put into consistent world building. So it's not just arbitrary, it is really smart and really funny and really amusing. It's not so much a transformation comic, but hey, that door got opened, and I'm using it as an excuse to make this comic more popular because I really think it deserves it. Ooh, Vainglorious. Yeah, I have seen this comic around, Vainglorious, another Hiveworks comic. And yeah, KD, another fan of poof transformation. There's actually going to be a panel later about in defense of poof transformation. Poof transformation is where I started because I thought, how convenient. Boy, I wish that were me. No, we're going to populate your bookmark tab. I mean, social media, as we know, is transforming into even more of a shithole than it used to be. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, it's 18 plus con. I can say that. So, you need to bring bookmarks back. Oh, I love all these recommendations. Thanks for giving me stuff to read. Bookmarks never went away from me, but you'd be surprised how differently people significantly younger than yourself may use the internet. Because a lot of the skills that those of us in our 30s and beyond learned from the early internet are kind of lost on certain people. I do not want to make any generation judgments because everyone in a generation is different, and generational wars, Gen Z, millennials, that's all a lie. That's divides people rather than bring them together. But I'm just saying. Latchkey Kingdom is a good one. Not so much transformation, but there is some. There are werecats in Latchkey Kingdom instead of werewolves. So everybody in Latchkey Kingdom is already somewhat of an anthropomorphic animal, but there's also werecats. And yes, there are symbiotic mascot suits. Latchkey Kingdom is really good. It's also by a friend of mine. You all are making it so this webcomic panel is true to its title. Ooh, I've heard Blades of Furry is really good. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but that is one that I see consistently recommended. Oh yeah, Smack Jeeves just sort of, but it's Latchkey Kingdom lives. Yeah, I haven't gotten around to subscribing or not subscribing to like using either Tapas or Webtoon because I just don't like the way that they're run, and I don't like how it kind of forces people to homogenize their styles. I miss the early days of webcomics where people were a lot more experimental and they didn't have to conform to social media like algorithms or making their images certain sizes or crop certain ways. I don't like that Tapas and Webtoon are like they don't allow you to link to other people outside of their platform. You don't get to create your own little world by going through a website and inviting people to like really indulge in, like I said, the world that you created, because they're very quickly shuffling you to the next person. Yeah, it's the webcomic version of gentrification, exactly. I think that, yeah, and it's like the focus on monetization. I miss I also like, this is another interesting topic to talk about anyways, that like the art quality of webcomics were like, when I started, it was more of a wild west of whoever wanted to make something just made something and put it out there, regardless of like how much skill or talent they had. And yeah, you would get things that were rough around the edges, but they were raw and they were real and they were earnest. And now, of course, you can get really high quality art, high quality writing, high production value from other web comics, but it's not the only way to do things. And I think there's this backlash where like people get used to a certain quality from the comics that are the most popular on platforms like Webtoons and Tapas, and they start resenting people for being like less than perfect. And as somebody who struggled with their art or their entire lives. I love drawing, but I'm never where I want to be. And it was an incredible amount of hard work and time and growth in order to polish my work. I resent the idea that there would be other artists just starting out, whether they're teenagers or middle aged or whatever, and they may have art that isn't as neatly polished and professional. I don't like those people being looked down on or pushed to the margins because they aren't making that popular webtoon that actually has like a team of 5 people behind it. They're not all like that. Support indie art. Webcomics arguably is the medium where you watch transformation happen in real time, regardless of whether or not there's transformation or not. Ain't that the truth? How did I push myself to improve on your drawing skills? The anxiety is real. It's a big struggle. I have friends who struggle with that anxiety. Sometimes that anxiety gets to me as well. I think what it comes down to is just that I've always loved the act of drawing. If Even if no one is looking and nobody's watching, nobody wants me to I'm drawing something that no one else is going to see, I like the act of drawing. And I think that sometimes you just need to take a step back and ask yourself why you want to draw. And if I hope the answer is something like you like doing it, you like to draw, you should just do it because you like to draw, not because you're so focused on the results. In the end, what other people think doesn't matter as much as what you think, because I can tell you, as somebody who's been putting my webcomic out there in the public eye for 20 years, there are people who have stuck around that whole 20 years, and I really appreciate them. But there's also tons of people who will come and go. And some of those people, a very small minority, are people who were mean to me or said that I couldn't do what I'm doing, or I'm doing it wrong, or the art is ugly, or something. But they're not it's not theirs. It's not their art. It's my art, or it's your art. It's yours. You are going to be with your art forever. So in the end, I hope that you like it, because if you like it, you're going to find more people who will like you and your art, in my opinion. But yes, the anxiety can be a lot to deal with. I don't have the magic cure for not being anxious anymore, but I will say that the more times you do something, the easier it gets. And that goes for both hard things and bad things, as well as good things and easy things. So the more times you draw, the less anxious you're going to be about drawing. It sounds simple, and it really is that simple. One of the most important pieces of advice is never accept criticism from someone you wouldn't ask advice from. Yep, it helps shield yourself from haters and people who just want to put others down. Yeah, to a certain degree, you also have, like, I don't have a very thick skin. I mean, it's all relative. But finding your limit is also important. I remember talking with my therapist about, sometimes I would read comments and it would really upset me. And other days I would read comics and it wouldn't upset me. And she proposed a very easy solution to that would be, a very simple, not easy, simple solution to that would be checking in with yourself before you make yourself vulnerable to the opinions of others, and ask yourself, do you feel ready? Do you feel ready for somebody to say something mean today? Or do you feel ready? Do you feel like you have a thick skin today? And if you don't have to deal with it. You can just not have comments. I don't have a comment section on Slightly Damned's website for a reason. I remember the current artist of the newspaper strip Nancy, in an interview, said that they likened reading anonymous criticism online to licking the railway at a subway. And I've never been able to unthink that, but it also is very true sometimes. It's okay to be selective about what feedback you get and where you get it from. Hi, Bash.
All right. Yeah, how are you? How's things? I peeked in and out. It seems like the panel went really well.
I think so. Everybody started sharing webcomics, so that's a success.
I mean, it's surprising that, speaking of the TV tropes earlier, there's so much TF webcomics that it has its own subcategory on TV tropes, which is insane.
Oh, cool.
Like, TF just seems, actually, if you think about it, Pneumonia also started as a TF webcomic, so I mean,
yeah, I didn't read Nimona, so I didn't even realize it was a TF like story until the movie came out, which I still haven't watched. But I've seen screenshots of it, and I was here for a talk, the transness and TF panel, where Nimona screenshots were shared as well. And yeah, like Rama One Half is such an interesting one, because like Rama started in what, like, I think like 1989. It's pretty old. And it's this interesting, like, manga anime that both, like, plays with this idea of gender roles and has a character that really got people thinking about being trans way before, like, when I was a kid. Because I'm like, the panelist was talking about, like Juniper was talking about, I'm like, well, what's the downside of being splashed with water and then I turn into a different animal, or like I get splashed with water, or I could just be a different gender? That sounds great. Why is it a curse? And Rama One Half is really interesting because it plays with that idea of gender identity, but also sometimes conforms to it, but also subverts it. And it just goes to, like, transformation is so much fun because I think that it always involves change. You have one, like, form of a person, and then you have them in a different form, and then you get to see what really makes that person, even if their gender changes or their species changes. You get to see, like, you really get to see who that person is, right, from that change.
All right. Looks like it's 2 now, so fortunately I have to do my role of switching over to the next one.
Yeah. Time for me to step back
yeah.
and let the other person take the stage. Thank you all very much for having me.
Yep, of course. Thank you very much. So originally we were supposed to have it was the original panel after this was supposed to be Chicken Soup for the Theory and Soul. Unfortunately, Tuxedo Dragon had to cancel it because they're feeling a little sick. So as kind of a last minute replacement, I'll be doing my inanimate TF panel. So if that's something you're interested in, hang on. We have to switch over the rooms. So just stay in the chat as I do the switch over.